absolutely nothing to do with today's.
It's beautiful.
Sounds nice.
Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here, hello.
Do you know, I nearly wound up playing 335s. I had doing this gig after my Strat was stolen, right? And I was borrowing, borrowing guitars, and I used a 335 for the whole gig. And I loved it. And then one song at the end, I put the telly on. This guy comes bounding up to me at the end of the gig and goes, "Oh my god, that telly sounds amazing!"
That's your guitar.
Yeah, that's it. That's my guitar.
Yeah, well, obviously,
that is an extraordinary sounding 335.
I'm a little bit in love with this at the moment. Obviously, it's still relatively new. Anyway, we talked about it in the last two videos.
Yes.
A 335 does have a very tenuous link to today's subject matter.
Okay.
Which was sparked by I was lucky enough to interview Michael Landau just recently. For anyone who
Honk.
Oh yeah,
Honk.
sorry, of course. For anyone who doesn't know Michael Landau, Mike is an unbelievably decorated session player. If you check out the allmusic.com listings for the stuff he's played on,
Check out All Music.
Yeah, it's astonishing.
It's crazy.
From like massive pop hits in the 80s, you know, pop artists from everyone from like Celine Dion, like Pavarotti's on there. It just keeps going and going and going. Is one of his main gigs these days is with James Taylor, singer-songwriter James Taylor, who tours all the time and is amazing, incredible band. But Michael also has just released an awesome solo album. It's out on February 23rd if this doesn't come out before that. Called Rock Bottom, and it's an astonishing sounding record.
Yeah.
Really moving.
Yeah.
And anyway,
you had a chat with him about that, didn't you?
I had a chat with him, and one of the questions I asked him was, the 335 tangent is, on the first track, there's an awesome out of phase beginning to a solo. And I asked him what that guitar was. It was a 335 that's wide out of phase. Anyway, more interestingly than that, I asked him what amps he used to record the record with, and he sort of surprised me by saying relatively small amps, so Princeton's, a couple of small Sir amps, because he's obviously known for using much louder stuff live, Dumbles. He has a Fender Signature Hot Rod Deluxe, which is his kind of go-to, easily rentable amp, 60 watts.
Yeah, he had a custom audio 100 modded by
Bob Bradshaw.
Yeah, was it modded by Brad? Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah.
I thought there was a Dumble link in there somewhere as well. But
I think Bradshaw was sort of involved with custom audio,
right?
Wasn't he? I think.
Yes.
Sorry if we've got that wrong, but anyway, they're good mates, him and Bob Bradshaw, and obviously Dumble. So you know the guy's well used to playing live, and if you check out and if you check out any of his videos from Baked Potato and stuff like that, clearly there's a
volume element,
a human who can handle a seriously cooking amp. However, recording not so much, and it chimed with something that has really been bothering me lately, which is in this here room, our louder amps are harder to record than our quieter amps.
Interesting.
So what can let's do something. We've got our least powerful amp that we own, Marshall Class 5, which is 5 watts. It's about as much as I know about it. EL84s, 10-inch speaker.
Is it EL84s or EL84? Is it single-ended or?
Don't know.
Okay.
We'll check that. Confirm that on the screen. Anyway, it's 5 watts. Pretty loud 5 watts.
Yeah. Well, whenever we've used the amp in video, people have always gone, "Oh, it sounds awesome."
Great." Yeah. Hums a bit, but
yeah.
There we are.
But interestingly enough, when you compare it, when you're in the room, right, and you're hearing it, like, you know, it's setting up this morning, and you put the Mesa on next to it, I'm just going, who would use that over that? I mean, that sounds mega.
Right, and that cuts to the absolute crux of what we're talking about. So the sound that you feel happy and comfortable with, and we'll get into that a little bit, versus the sound that actually hits the microphones. Because
right.
Landau said to me, you know, the mic doesn't know what it's hearing. The mic's got no idea what volume you're playing at. All the mic knows is, well, the mic doesn't know anything, it's an inanimate object, but you adjust the sensitivity of the mic with the input gain on your mic preamp. So
right.
As far as what you end up hearing back through the speakers or your headphones or however you're listening to this, the guitar is the same volume.
Yes, of course.
Which is not the experience. So there's no real agenda other than that. We'll try not to go on for 3 days about it because, excuse me, I rather suspect we could.
So one of the things with recording this is we're not going to be able to have any idea until we hear the audio back. But I can say, I mean, maybe we can have a little bit of the, just for this first part, maybe a little bit more of the room mics, because like, so here is this is the Marshall.
Let's turn this on so that you've got an idea of. I'm just going to check. Simon, I'm going to check this already. Of course he will. Of course he will. Of course he will.
He's a professional.
I know. At least that makes one of us.
So this is the Class 5 by itself. But then this is the Mesa Boogie. It's just huge.
It's really interesting. So if I shout and clap my hands, if I could clap my hands, it's interesting. Yeah, the dB meter is, well, it's going a bit crazy, but it's anything from the ambient noise in the room, which is what, 40 to 50, all the way up to kind of when you hit the Marshall, 80, I think it was. Just try that again. Okay, actually went up just over 90.
Right.
Do the same with the Boog. You weren't hitting the guitar as hard as you did with the Marshall, and it still went up over 100 dB. So these aren't absolutes because I'm not sure how.
It's an indication.
It's an indication, yeah. And the experience of hearing that is the Mesa sounds. It's a 100-watt Lone Star, by the way, set on 100 watts. It sounds more bassy, more trebly, bigger, fuller.
So if I do the same thing...
It is a 12-inch cabinet, of course,
right?
Which, you know, could be a part of it.
So this is the Mesa with the D&M drive going into it. Now that's a lot brighter than I would normally have it because I was messing around with that into the Marshall first of all.
Right.
So that's the Mesa, and this is the same sound into the Class 5. I mean, just sat here playing is such a it's a world apart.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
No, absolutely.
I'm trying to work out a way in the audio editing where I can bring that difference as closely as possible, because it almost couldn't be more different.
No.
In terms of the little Marshall, yes, the cabinet is a bit smaller. Yes, it's a 10-inch speaker. That's part of it, but it's really not all of it. It's the fact that little power amp is working much harder, and it's just not putting the frequencies through in the same way. It's not just about EQ, even though you're tempted to say that it's just about EQ.
Yeah.
So I'll try and present that as faithfully as possible. Now what we'll do is let's see how quiet we can go with the Marshall.
Okay.
To a point where you're still comfortable playing, and see what that level is. And I guess we could use the level on the D&M drive, could we?
Yeah.
So maybe if you just have one side of the D&M drive on, doesn't really matter which.
Okay.
How did I guess he was going to choose that one?
And into the Marshall, yeah?
Yeah, and just play a bit and see, get a sound that you're happy with.
That'll do.
Happy with that?
Yep.
Right, keep playing. Let's see how quiet we can get. Keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is interesting. That is so quiet that I can hear the sound of the strings louder than I can hear what's coming out the amp. And just for the sake of this little bit, we'll just leave the vocal mics up. You won't hear any amp mics just for this next section.
Mm-hmm.
So just play. And if I talk, you can hear the sound, how loud the guitar is in relation to me talking. It's no louder than a voice. In fact, it's quieter. So what I'm going to do now, Dan, is while Dan's playing, I'm going to increase the mic sensitivity, turn the gain up on the mic to the point where
that's hitting. Okay,
it's loud.
Interesting, right?
Into the recorder.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting experiment. That's really interesting. So for anyone who's interested, when we plug the mics into the UA Apollo there, I always attenuate the input by about 25 dB because just the way digital recorders work, it helps to attenuate when you're doing it loud. Anyway, taking the attenuation off and giving it about 50 dB
of increased gain,
40 dB at the input.
Right.
So that's coming through at that volume.
Right. Okay.
Which you can't really tell, except can you see the waveform? For the purposes of explanation, the waveform is you can't even see it before, and now it's kind of a small waveform.
Right. Okay.
So there's virtually no input gain there at all.
Wow.
Sorry, no level there at all.
Yeah.
So that's uncomfortably quiet.
It's difficult to play. I can certainly get there's no feedback loop going. I'm not getting any love from that.
Yeah.
You know.
What I'd be interested to hear is if I can hear the sound of the strings
above
into
the mic,
into the amp mic. So just try that. To give you some idea of how loud that is, here's me talking into the amp mic. Okay, interesting. Right, we're going to leave the class 5 set as exactly as it is.
Okay.
Switch over to the Boog. Now let's go with a loud sound.
Okay. Using the same sound on here.
Yep. So we might need to change the level on the D&M Drive.
Yeah. Okay.
So give us if you were just to play the Boogie now, where would we be?
Okay. That's not crazy loud, but that's really nice. And
what's your experience of that as?
Oh, I can feel it.
Yeah.
It's like what's happening? There's this feedback loop as the amp hits me and hits the guitar, and I feel it and I play differently, and that goes back into that and it sort of creates that cycle. But as soon as I go, like, yeah, okay, there we are. Awesome.
All right, then for the purposes of demonstration, the dB meter's gone off, but I think we were peaking at about 103, 104, something like that there, which is pretty loud, considering I think at the crazy low volume it was about 70.
Okay.
So if you know anything about loudness, it's a logarithmic scale. 105 isn't 30% louder than another 35 after 70. It's like many times louder. Yeah. I think for every 3 dB plus. Anyway, there'll be loads of comments about that. I'm not going to say it because there'll be 2 million comments. It's a logarithmic scale.
Yeah.
The more the dB goes up, the exponentially louder it gets. Right. I'm going to see if this will work. I'll leave the vocal mics and the room mics up.
Right.
And what I want you to do is A/B between the Mesa and the Marshall, just to indicate what that sound might be like in the room. I know I'm going to have to turn the level down for the Marshall.
Okay.
So start with the Mesa and give us a few chords. And back to the Mesa.
That's awesome.
You far prefer the playing experience when it's loud.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
And then, interestingly, it's easier to play quiet. Right? At this volume. Because there's no push and pull from the guitar, it's really easy, to do all the really crazy fast stuff. But you don't get any when you're at the volume.
Ergo, it sounds great because I can't hear it.
Exactly.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because I'm not hearing the detail.
Yeah.
I can fiddle and whittle to my heart's content, and it doesn't.
Well, there's a very serious point in there, isn't there?
There is. So if I do this, if I go back to where I was here. It's all right. So I stuffed that up, and it's sort of arresting because it's so in your face. It's like, so you need to be on it. And
I think So there's 2 points there. Back to the top of the video. One of the reasons I was kind of interested in this is because when I recorded the 2 Rock video, and also whenever we've used the 2 Rock, it never sounds. When you hear it in the room, it sounds majestic, colossal,
enormous.
Every adjective you want to, superlative. It's a phenomenal sounding thing, and transferring that to a recorded sound, I've struggled with. And fast forward the conversation, and it's also pretty hard to play in terms of, exactly what you were just saying. It demands that you play cleanly and well, and that's what makes you a better player and all the rest of it. And then talking to Landau and him saying, actually, he struggles recording loud amps as well because you don't get the dynamic. That's where we're. So there's 2 things, isn't it? One is the effect on your playing of volume, and the other is what does it actually sound like through the mics. Can we just try that with a slightly cleaner sound for a second?
Yeah.
If we go to the boost side of the D&M, like no gain on. So let's do the same thing. Let's get a decent level through the Mesa. immediately the transients are harder because we peaked at 108 there, so we'll just come down a bit from there.
Righteous, glorious.
Pretty loud.
Yeah.
So then we'll go over to the class 5, and if you could turn the level down to that same...
Okay.
I think we might have even peaked the input there, so I'm just going to turn the input down a bit. And that's
even at that volume.
Whole other interesting. Well, I did have it boosted to
okay,
50 dB at the input. Plus, of course, distorted sound doesn't have anything like the transients of a clean sound. And I think
of course,
so,
okay.
That's still
okay.
Still high, but
let me turn it.
to play because I'm not sure if I'm playing an acoustic guitar or, or an electric one. But again, what you're hearing through the audio of this video at this point
should be the same level.
Should be a similar level. So let's.
I can't wait to hear this.
Let's A/B them just again and see.
It's crazy, right?
The levels are going to be all over the place. All right, which might be interesting. It might be confusing.
Right.
But I think we've started at the ridiculous, and actually not that ridiculous because the Mesa is at kind of the volume we would normally play in here. So maybe a little bit up from there. And if you were recording, you might record a little louder than that, maybe.
Yeah. If I was recording with the band live, it'd be that or louder.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be fair, in this room, that's where the point of struggle comes for me.
Right.
Because I also wonder if rooms have a kind of a maximum.
Okay.
So if you're in a cupboard,
yeah, of course,
and you've got the amp in there, then all you're hearing at that point is reflection, because the amp's kind of overpowering the space. And I have wondered, and this is kind of 2 years of sat in here listening to audio going, I wonder actually if our ceiling for this room is less than the Two Rock puts out. It's less than that really. Cranked.
Look, because I guess the venue that the Two Rock's designed to play in is going to be bigger than our little room here.
Yeah. Whereas a smaller amp, not doing as much work, not moving as much air, the mic is doing more of the work. The room mics are doing more of the work.
Interesting.
So there we go. That's the extremes of things.
Right.
How about now? Let's set the amps to a similar level.
Yes.
In terms of audibility. The Mesa actually comes with an attenuation mode. Let's attenuate the Mesa down to 10 watts, which is closer to the Class 5. Set them at a similar audible level.
Because this is my question, right?
And see what we can hear.
Because this is my question. Is it that you can turn the Class 5 up and the amplifier's doing its lovely thing, but it's not smashing the microphone?
Yeah.
So if we get a similar thing happening, is that going to then completely, make them even?
Yeah.
So okay.
All right. Well, we'll start with the Mesa. We'll start with the Mesa in 100 watt mode, and keep the levels the same. And then part of the way through that, we'll switch the Mesa to 10 watts, turn it up a bit. So
awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Great.
Right. We're gonna have to do some jiggery pokery of levels again. I'm gonna set the input levels back to where they were. I reckon we should be looking at about 90 dB,
Okay,
something
yep,
like that, something
yep.
sensible, so that it's relevant for low volume.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So let's get the Marshall to about 90 dB and see how loud that is. Okay, 90 might have been a bit
Yeah.
ambitious.
I reckon, yeah.
1995 for the
95,
peaks.
95, yeah.
Because it's, for context, the Marshall is now with the volume at about 10 o'clock. So actually, I'll just turn it up and see what happens.
Okay. See, that's very reasonable. That's very reasonable.
That's where we need to be. I think we need to be there while he tunes, because that's where the amp's starting to work.
Yep.
So, all right, we're peaking at 101 there as far as the meter is concerned. So,
which is equal to the ambient sound pressure level at them.
yeah. So maybe this is a whole other video. Maybe the conclusion there is if you need to be playing any quieter than the amp working, then you need to attenuate it, or you need to go direct and use something like 2 notes or aux.
Yeah, right.
Whole separate story. That's just the amp.
Just the amp, nothing else on.
That sounds pretty good. Just give me a little look.
I'd maybe even suggest bringing the Marshall down a little bit, because it's really breaking up now, especially on the bridge pickup.
Okay.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Similar. I'm going to turn the reverb down in the Mesa, lovely as it is. I should also say thanks to Mesa, who, Mesa Boogie. Mesa Boogie.
Mesa.
If you're American, it's Mesa Boogie. But because we're English, we say Mesa Boogie.
I've just always called it Mesa Boogie.
Yeah.
Anything else just sounds weird to me.
And if anyone thinks it's weird, it's not called Los Angeles. Okay?
Okay.
So, just in case we want to get into an argument about pronunciation,
right,
we've all bastardised the language of many nations.
I'm Australian, I'm an expert at it.
Yeah, the Americans have done it to us for 200 years, so right back at you. No. It evolves, it changes. Anyway, Mesa Boogie, that used to be in a head.
Oh, that was the head one.
It was a long head.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was too long to carry around, so I had a cabinet made, which was smaller, and my friend Matt got in touch and said, do you want a proper head chassis for that, or can we help you? And I said, well, actually, what I'd really like is a 1x12 combo, so it's easy to carry around. So we facilitated an arrangement, and it turned up.
See, Did they see the that in the head and just went, no, we can't have that?
I can't imagine that was part of their thinking at all.
A really quick tangent.
If it was me, I'd have gone, what is he doing? What the hell is he doing?
There was a my brother told me the story. There was a farmer in Queensland who'd done really well, went and bought himself a Rolls Royce and had it converted to a ute. Right?
A ute is a utility vehicle in Australia.
Yeah. And Rolls Royce saw a picture of it. They went out, gave him a brand new Rolls Royce, took the ute back and had it destroyed because they couldn't have a Rolls Royce being seen as a ute.
Oh, that's just awesome. I foresee a future with the TPS Rolls Royce ute.
There you go.
On that subject, we were in America, but this will be the end of this. We were at NAMM, and one of the questions we keep asking ourselves, and maybe you could help us out with this, the pickup is the most popular car in America.
Mm-hmm.
If you could just put in the comments, what are you picking up in your pickup? That's what I want to know.
Interesting.
Because the majority of them I saw driving around had nothing in the back.
The ladies.
You can't, but if you picked up a lady, you wouldn't put her in the back, you'd let her sit in the front, wouldn't you?
But the pickup is what attracts the ladies.
No. Certain kind of lady. Actually, there's loads of country songs like that. I prefer a pickup truck to a... Oh, who is that? It's she's got the most amazing voice. Leanne Womack. Go ahead and give it a whirl. You've got the wrong girl.
Right.
Because does she like pickup trucks, four-wheeling in the woods? Does she get her hands greasy underneath the hood?
There's this famous Australian country song about a ute. A romantic Australian country song, but we won't go there.
Okay. Yeah, this has been something of a tangent.
Again, really interested to see if this makes the edit.
So, okay, what's the question then? We've got the 2 amp set at the same... Simon's lost it. We've got the 2 amp set at the same volume.
From pickups to pickups.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, from pickups to pickups. Yeah. We've got the 2 amp set at the same volume. One is 100 watts.
Yes.
And one is 5 watts, and they're set to the same volume. So, what's the difference in switching the boogie down to 10 watts?
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a hit through some pedals a sec.
Yep. Okay.
Just to see what the effect of a little bit of boost
okay.
or drive might be
yes.
in the 2 amps, yeah?
Well, let's go with... okay, this is the broadcast.
Yeah.
Into the Marshall.
Just want to try that same thing with the D&M Drive. Level up, yeah.
You can tell the boogie is barely ticking over.
Yeah, okay, so the observation I was going to make was, tell me if you agree, the broadcast feels like it's pushing all of the Marshall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
So there wasn't a huge jump in volume. We haven't got it set for a massive volume increase, which you can see on the dB meter there. In fact, if anything, the transients might be lower.
Mm.
marginally. To me, into the boogie, it sounded like it was just pushing the preamp.
Yeah.
And the power amp wasn't...
Hardly engaged. Just idling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel like that to you?
Yeah.
D&M Drive, maybe slightly different. What did you take
Well,
from that?
the frequencies that the D&M drive is pushing, because the broadcast is pushing out more of a full frequency thing, but set like that, the D&M drive is just doing the mids.
Yeah.
So the broadcast into the Marshall is acting more like a fuzz.
Yeah.
But into the Mesa, it sounds more like a fizz.
Well, it's interesting. Put the Mesa on again with the broadcast. It's a whole different bunch of frequencies.
Yeah.
And notwithstanding the fact they are different amps, so that's going to happen a bit. But I'm just hearing so much more preamp in the Mesa, I think.
Yeah, and also because where that bottom end is shelved in that, so the broadcast is pushing all the frequencies above that, because there's so much more headroom and power left in that, and this would be really interesting to see if the mic is picking this up, because in the room you're hearing all of this like sub frequencies, you know, that mics traditionally have trouble picking up on certain recording.
Yeah, the amp mics won't be hearing it. The room mic probably will.
Right. Okay.
For anyone who hasn't watched our behind the scenes show, in fact, Simon will show you now. So we sit here, and behind us are the amps. Obviously, if I walk forward, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 or 7 feet. I'm now over here. Simon's going to see if he can bend the camera around. I'll probably be dark and very compromised. What's new? And again, my voice will probably be very quiet. But these are our room mics. These are AKG C414XLs, and they face that way, so they pick up the reflections of the room in addition to a bit of direct sound. So that's where they are. And because they're there, the low end, the resonant low end they pick up from the room is much greater than the low end you hear straight out of that speaker. We do that because mixed, those two microphone sources mixed give a slightly more realistic view of what we hear
in the room. Okay.
Whereas just a single mic on the amp really doesn't. Interestingly, come back to Michael Landau again, he says he only ever uses one mic on an amp. Only ever. For recorded.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Paul Stacey does that as well.
That's a Paul Stacey. Okay.
All right.
So we've learned that for the same volume, pedals have a different reaction or a different effect on an amp.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps just to finish off, I don't know how long we've been going, but 45 minutes, which is not too bad.
Yes, but that's attenuate now, the boogie.
Yeah.
Down to 10.
So we're going to play with the boogie. It's got two levels of attenuation.
Mm-hmm.
3. Well, 2 of attenuation. 100 watts, 50 watts, and 10 watts. So maybe let's see what that brings to the game. Give us some Mesa. What I'm going to do, it's currently in 100 watt mode. Dan's going to play. I'm going to switch it from 100 to 50 to 10 without changing anything else. Tell you what's really interesting about that straight away is the bottom end character is now much more like the Marshall.
Yeah, right.
Would you agree from where you're saying? Yeah.
Certainly with the telly, it seems to be shoving a different area now.
Yeah. I've always find that with as as a relevant tangent, any amp that's got an attenuation function, the first thing I miss is the bottom end. The minute you attenuate
well, don't
it.
forget, because the way we amplify bottom end, it takes a lot of watts. Without that there, it's going to struggle. Certainly the frequencies that we were putting out before, even at that low volume, there's so much bottom end. And as soon as you put it down, even at the same volume, and even though we still have loads of room to go, the bottom end is completely different. But I think...
Which is why attenuators have EQ, reactive attenuators have, or some attenuators have EQ controls on. Okay, keep going. Let me just check the input gain on the... So I'm trying to get the Mesa overdriving in the power amp stage, which is difficult because it's down to 10 watts and we were way over 100 dB there. Okay. So it's quite hard to do that. So I'm going to bring up the preamp again a little bit to drive some... In fact, let's move to the second channel.
Right.
Because everything's the same. It's still got 3 levels of attenuation, but the second channel's got more gain in it, which will be more similar.
Okay.
So that's the channel 2 at 100 watts.
Right.
And I'll do the same thing. I'll flick down to 50 and then to 10.
Okay.
So how are we in relation to the Marshall?
Pretty good.
But again, from where I'm sat, way more bottom end out of the Mesa.
Yeah.
The Marshall again. The input gain on the recorder is showing the same thing. What's this showing? Similar.
Mm-hmm.
Similar. So what's our question now? Is the 5 watt amp breathing more pleasing than a 100 watt amp
attenuated?
This 100 watt amp attenuated to 10 watts.
All right.
So I guess we just play a bit and see what we think.
Okay. I'm going to add, just for this one,
That's nice. What's that?
that is the long amp flanger.
It's really cool. Never heard that before.
And into the Echoplex.
Yeah.
So this is the Roxanne by long amp, obviously. It's awesome. We're gonna do, because I've been looking for a replacement for my flanger, and I've been playing with this and it's amazing.
Okay.
So yeah. Right, so that's that lot.
What were we hearing now?
That's the broadcast.
Yeah.
Into the long amp, into the Echoplex.
Okay.
Right. So now for the same thing, into the boogie. a radically different experience than playing on 100 watts. Radically different.
In what way?
Well, because...
Okay, you keep playing. I will
Right.
change it to 100 watts and turn it down, and hopefully we can hear.
So, there's this...
For everyone screaming at the screen now, please, why don't you show us the front panel of the amp? I'll tell you what I did. All I did was, the amp was in 10 watt mode, and the master volume was about there. There.
Mm-hmm.
I flicked it to 100 watts, and the master volume went to about there. That much difference.
In the 10 watt mode, there's this chewiness about the sound that when you had it in 100 watt mode turned down isn't there.
Yeah.
And it's more reminiscent of the feel of the smaller watt amplifier. There's still a bigness about the sound that has to do with the speakers and the output transformer. Because obviously that doesn't change.
Bigger cabinet, bigger output transformer.
But
there's
definitely a thing. There's definitely a thing in limiting the amount of power the amplifier has to the way that it's reacting when you're playing into it. Love it.
Yeah, I got the impression that you were in some way preferring the 10 watt mode.
Immediately connected. Immediately.
Yeah.
Especially with...
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, to finish off, or at least to do the last bit of playing, let's set up a different kind of sound. Could I have just like a very mild drive and a bit of echoplex? And see how that feels. Again. And finally, 100 watt mode in the Boog.
What do you think?
It's so funny. For years I've been saying I don't really like the 10 watt mode in that amp.
Right.
Because there's no objective criticism there. All it is I miss the bigness and the articulacy, if you like, of the 100 watts.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's palpably easier to play, which is kind of what you were saying right back at the beginning about how that lovely sound was, the very squashy, super quiet sound was easier to play. Can't wait to hear the audio.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating.
Can't wait to hear the audio. Yeah.
See,
sorry, carry on.
And I was going to say, there's in my new Hampshire, there's a 7-watt mode, which I love. But it has something to do with, because it's still got the big Apple transformer, still got the big speakers, but limiting the power on that. In a situation like this, where you're not on a really loud stage, having that on and turning up a little bit, it's so much fun. And I'm feeling a very similar sort of thing in the 10-watt mode of that.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I'm really hanging to hear the audio.
Yeah.
Because what we're hearing and what we're feeling, does that translate to the microphones?
Yeah. And if I do any jiggery pokery with the audio, it's easy for me to say. If I do any jiggery pokery with the audio, we'll make it clear on screen what's happening. Okay, so finally then, just to finish off, this video started somewhere and it's kind of gone somewhere else, which is that's fine.
That's what we do.
What we do, isn't it? We really ought to hear them both together, didn't we?
Hello. So the answer is always 2 amps.
I spoilt Dan's fun right at the end by turning the amps down, turning the preamp gain up, just to see we went from a very loud sound in the room, on the subject of which TPS is facing a problem.
Yes.
We've got to move. Our otherwise wonderfully understanding neighbours have got, understandably,
Less understanding.
less understanding. We've got to move, so we have to move. We're going to be moving soon. You heard it really loud at 105, whatever it was, all the way down to 95, 93, just to see how satisfying 2 amps at low volume could be. And the answer, Daniel, is...
Did you see me deflate as that happened?
I mean, it went... Yeah, but it's still a reasonable sound, isn't it?
No, it's great.
Yeah.
You know, but there's, having those 2 on, doing their magic.
Yeah,
Magic.
I mean, if there's any conclusion there, it's clearly there's a level that, I don't know, tickles your happy bone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
At the risk of an entendre.
Yeah.
Simon's laughing.
But tickling the happy bone, but the amp tickling its own happy bone,
Yeah.
and how that is interacting with the happy place of the microphone.
Yeah.
So, yes. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, the gratifying conclusion, hopefully, is that it isn't all about volume.
Yeah.
And the way, God, how long have we been doing this? I've been talking about this stuff for over 20 years, as you have. And it takes a conversation with somebody on the phone to go, oh yeah, you know what, recording and live really are two fundamentally different things.
Yeah. Just a slightly different thing at the end, whether or not, Simon, feel free to edit this out. But listening to a couple of guys at NAMM, right? And we've always been saying, the solo thing and cutting through in the band mix and make sure your mids are there. But then one of the artists I heard at NAMM simply had a really crazy loud, like full frequency, not a lot of mids, but he was just so loud that it worked in the mix.
Right.
It's not like... he wasn't fighting with anything, because you're not going to fight against that. There's no way you could possibly win. But that's where the volume argument comes in. Because what happens then, when you have that crazy amount of headroom, is the dynamics changes.
Of course, yeah. I mean, hopefully we proved that fairly solidly today.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
Very
all right,
interesting.
we've gone around the houses, once again talking about wattage, attenuation, recording, small amps, big amps, what the microphone hears, what your ears hear.
Yeah.
It's endlessly interesting.
It's endlessly important because, I've thrown a bunch of pedals on here that at the moment I'm really loving, right? And how they function dynamically into this, it's like
chalk and day, wasn't it?
Incredible.
Night and cheese.
It's so, my sound, at the moment, based around using the Hampstead, but hearing it to these two, it's like, wow, you really need to, once you've found this and you've found that's when you start fine-tuning, it's amazing.
Groovy. Okay, so thank you to our patrons on Patreon.
Yeah,
thank you guys. Thank you to our exclusive preferred retailers, who in the USA is
Riff City Music. Hey Joe.
In Australia is
Pedal Empire in Brisbane, Queensland.
Yeah, and there's a whole thing about Ayers Rock, Uluru in the last description for the last video, 2 videos ago. And in the UK and Europe, our very good friends
at Anderton's Music
of Guildford in Surrey. Great. And please go to thatpedalshow.com, thatpedalshowstore.com, where you can buy items of clothing.
Yeah. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed.
Oh yeah, do that.
Yeah.
We're as this video goes out, we've surpassed 126,000 subscribers.
Dude. Awesome.
Yeah.
Right, cheers guys. Have a fantastic week and we'll see you next Friday. Bye.